Hello, everybody. My name is Katie Roome from Periapsis Press, and today I am with Paula Richey, the author of Penance, as well as a comic called Soulbound. Hello, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me. It's good to be here.
So, we're kind of coming together today because of the re-release of Penance.
hmm
Do you want to just talk a little bit about what that is looking like?
Uh, yeah, so I was, a couple years ago, I was very excited to be part of the Heroes Unleashed universe from Silver Empire Press. Um, and, had big plans to release a trilogy of books featuring my original superhero character, Penance, who does not start off very heroic. And, uh, and her journey into becoming a better person and um, her life and faith and powers and everything else coming together, and lots of momentum on that at the time. And then Silver Empire Press uh, went out of business, and I got my rights back, no problem, and um, couldn't couldn't really re-release my book and have the Amazon reviews from the previous version.
Sounds
Um,
like you had a time with that.
yeah, so yeah, there's still the original, version up on Amazon right now. It's got 22 reviews and it's unavailable.
Oh,
But now I have 7 reviews on my new one that I re-released.
well, that's good.
Yeah. So, we're gradually pulling things together. But so after everything that was involved over the last couple years, um, being published and launching it the first time, and then everything falling apart and having to pick it all up and put it back together again, I decided to re-release it um, under my own company because I'd already published a couple of comics, and just make it an Other Realm Studio book. And since Other Realm Studio isn't just writing, it's also art and accessories and also stuff because I can't just stick to one medium. Um, so I decided to make the re-release more than a re-release. It's an illustrated edition. I did my own art for the cover and for the illustrations, and I also added another epilogue to the end of it to show another character's perspective.
Cool.
So I didn't want to just put it out there again and um, expect to build up all this hype that over something that I'd already done once. I always want to
Sure.
improve and move forward. It just takes a lot out of you.
Yeah. Yeah. Would you like to talk a little bit about how you started writing Penance way back in the beginning?
Oh, way, way back in the beginning. Um, so I've always written and um, daydreamed up stories. Like I spend a lot of time in my head um, thinking up characters in different scenarios. And anytime I read a book or see a show that I'm really invested in, I start plugging my own characters into that situation to just feel out how I would handle um, how I would handle this sort of plot or dealing with this other sort of character that I'd never encountered in real life before, or um, just playing around with the concepts of the stories. Um, so when I was about 14, I came up with a character with electromagnetic powers. And I started thinking, well, what all can you do with that? And what kind of person would she be? And I wanted to really lean into creating a character that was as different from myself as possible while still being a relatable character that you want to spend time with. And as it turned out, you know, as I fleshed out Penance's character, she really did become more and more of her own person and less of like a fan fiction character to plug into other people's stories. And
Sure.
she had her own entire story and her own entire arc going on. And it didn't even cross over into any of the universes of the worlds of all the shows and books that I had heard of before. And then when the Heroes Unleashed uh, initiative, I guess, started, I realized that that was her universe. That's somewhere that Penance could live. So it was kind of interesting that on a meta level, she didn't have a home.
Yeah.
And the Heroes Unleashed universe is still it's still kind of out there. The other authors who are creating in that universe, they still have their books. They got the rights back to, and um, I expect to see more of the Heroes Unleashed books released either individually by the authors or with whichever publishers they found ready to tackle it. It's in our hands now.
Well, that's
We
kind of
just
fun.
Yeah.
It, even though Silver Empire is sadly gone, there's still
The
like an ongoing,
Yeah, the universe lives on. I
yeah,
believe in it.
people coming together, creative minds. It's very cool.
Yeah.
What about the superhero genre like drew you especially, like, and in particularly?
Um well, it's kind of hard to say. I've always just really liked superheroes, but I wasn't really able to get into the comics for various reasons. Um there's local comic shops, but I couldn't really get out and go browse through them. A couple of times that I did, I didn't know what I was looking at. Um there is no issue number one that you start at and you just continue all the way through. Um, Manga does that, but
Right.
at the time, there was no import market of comics, so there were just a ton of comics out there and no order to start in. And
Yeah.
I really like to start at the beginning and read the whole contained story, and then I have a whole contained story in my head afterward.
Yeah.
Comics don't really do that, not in America. So most of my superhero exposure came from cartoons and TV shows. Like the X-Men cartoon was absolutely, legendary, really phenomenal. Um, and I really liked the characters of Rogue and Jubilee. And um, one of my reviews from Declan Finn, he said that my character Penance kind of turned out to be a little bit of a mix of Rogue and Jubilee. If Jubilee's powers had actually been useful. And I'm like, well, yeah, that was my big complaint through X-Men. I like Jubilee's character, but then they decided they didn't know what to do with her. Um, there's so much more that she could have done, aside from blowing things up. Although I like the blowing things up.
Always adds excitement.
Oh yeah. So let's see, and the Justice League and Superman and Batman the animated series, all those were really good. Also, Teen Titans, that they had a fantastic run. I'm still a little I still find Teen Titans go a little bit off-putting, but my kids really liked them. So, when that was on, so I guess I'll forgive them a little. Um, but specifically, what about the superhero genre? It's a little hard to pin down exactly what it is that's so appealing. It just is. You have people who they could be using their abilities to just slack off or to make the world worse. And frequently they're dealing with people who hate them, who tell lies about them, um, who use them and exploit them. I mean, they're dealing with all kinds of situations where their powers do not make things easier. In fact, their powers make things incredibly difficult. It's like in writing, you're supposed to chase your characters up a tree and then throw rocks at them and set the tree on fire. Um, and So anytime something seems to be going really good, and the temptation would be to think, oh, well, these characters have their lives all together and everything's going to go great for them because they have these unbeatable powers. What happens instead in, a good superhero story is that no, no, everything is worse. Everything is so much worse. So, I really think that aspect inspired Penance the most, because every time she gets something figured out, oh no, things are so much worse now. So
Yeah. Yep, I agree.
I'm truly a cruel person.
You did a really nice job of turning up the tension for sure.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I chased
Um,
her all over the galaxy.
One thing that you said in the written review, which will be coming out on my website later this week, was that you felt that there was something about superheroes that was like uniquely American. Can you expand on that a little bit?
I mean, yeah, so I've noticed that in a lot of the other comics genres in other countries, you have a lot of genres. You've got your slice of life, you've got your Regency romance, you've got fantasy stuff, um, and there's like spy novels and thrillers and everything. And in America, you have horror comics. I noticed this again at the show last weekend, and you have superheroes, and that's kind of it. But it seems to me that in America, superheroes are more appealing because we have this individualistic spirit where if something is wrong and you look around and you know that something should be happening or something should not be happening, if you know that there is a wrong to be righted, you don't sit around and wait for the authorities to show up. You deal with it yourself. Um, this is it's kind of like the pioneering spirit when Davy Crockett and who all uh, felt too crowded by their neighbors. They just moved further west. Then they didn't tell their neighbors to stop doing their thing. They just went off and did their own. um, so it's like the
Yeah,
individualism and the self-sufficiency kind of lends itself to not just a vigilante type of genre, but also the inner sense of knowing what's right and also feeling the need to go do something about it.
yeah, this pro sort of a proactive.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it doesn't seem like other countries are that gung ho about it.
Yeah, it seems to be something that has um, manifested here, and certainly within the superhero genre. Um, Penance is a very proactive character, sort of. That's kind of her arc, really.
Hmm.
Because she kind of goes from being someone who's pushed around and who goes along with things to someone who decides to take a different route and change things up. Um, and and take on responsibility as opposed to letting somebody else take care of it.
Yeah. So, she doesn't really have a history of other people taking care of her, but when somebody does take care of her, she feels it very deeply and she appreciates it. But, she's used to being kind of left out on her own, having to do things for herself. And at first, all she thinks about is taking care of herself and getting herself out of trouble. But then she starts also taking care of other people and thinking about how other people um, will suffer if she turns a blind eye, if she doesn't do the right thing. So she starts gradually moving into not just being self-sufficient, but also being somebody who can be relied upon.
Hmm.
Sort of. Like she messes up a lot, but she's trying.
Yeah. Is there, I was curious, is there a reason that with Penance you decided to go the novel route as opposed to um, going in with a comic?
Um well, yeah, the thing is, any any artist can tell you everything you try to draw is absolute garbage. So, you've got so many years of garbage to get behind you. And, any novelist can tell you that too. There's so much garbage that you have to write. Well, if you're putting out your own comic, not only are you writing garbage, but you're drawing garbage. And if you've never done it before, then how are you going to do it? Where do you even
Sure.
start? So it was a simpler process to do the novel. And actually, before the novel, I had um, I'd gone over the story in my head so many times, and there was an opportunity to submit a short story, a short superhero story, to an anthology. And so I did, and I never heard back from that one. And then, like the year after that, Silver Empire came out with a superhero anthology, and I sent in my same story. I tightened it up a bit. It seemed more like what they wanted anyway, and they accepted it. So that anthology was called Paragons. Don't think it's available anymore, but my story in it was Soldier Out of the Desert, and it's now one of the chapters in Penance.
Okay.
So, writing the short story got the ball rolling, and I realized that I could get an entire book out of Penance's adventures because of just that one short chapter of it turned out to be a lot more than I expected. So,
Sure.
the more that I wrote, the more that I had to write, and it just kept getting bigger.
Sure.
So, yeah,
How
I
is
ended up
your
with a novel.
Yeah. How is your creative process for Penance different than Soulbound then?
So Soulbound, um, let's see. I have an outline, and each issue is sort of revolving around a theme. So there's 10 issues planned in the series, and each one has one major event, and they kind of dovetail into each other. But Adrift, Soulbound Adrift is issue 1, and this introduces Becca and the world that she's in, and the world um, that our other characters come from, and the situation. And Escape puts Becca like smack in the middle of that world and having to deal with it and everything else going on. And then issue 3, Oaths, this deals with Becca's connection to Torin, who she meets in the other realm. Um, And then let's see, issue 4. What was issue 4? A Curse of Crows. I have not done that one yet, so no spoilers. But yeah, so that, it starts off dealing very tightly focused in a certain time period and moving forward just a bit. So focused in on one character, and then the world gets bigger every issue.
Cool.
Um, so Penance, I'm pretty much just following her around and seeing what she does next.
Can you talk a little bit about what your because you're working on your sequel for Penance as well. Can
Oh
you talk
yeah.
a little bit about what we're going to see there?
Um, yeah. So Penance, the first book focuses a lot on how she just starts discovering who she is and who she's meant to be, and taking up those responsibilities. And now in book 2 she needs to come to terms with who she was, and she doesn't have a very good past, and there's always people who will come up and throw your past in your face. And so there's a character who's kind of she's kind of hogging the spotlight. She's turning into a bit bigger of a character than I expected her to in the beginning. um, who's a news anchor, and uh, her name's Bess Eckards, but all the criminals call her Bass Ackards because she can always be trusted to get the story wrong in their favor. So they tend to lead her along and manipulate the press uh, in order to get away with stuff themselves. And so Penance tells her this hard truth that she's being lied to and used, and she doesn't take it well. So Penance has a full-scale smear campaign against her going on at one point, and also Kale, who she had been getting along with, um, wanted to hmm, let's just say his priorities for uh, what they were going to be doing in the future did not line up with reality very much.
Sure.
And Kale has to return back to his planet and fix a lot of things going on there. And, they have to deal with, I mean, it sounds a little cliche to say that these characters have to deal with their insecurities, but they do. Otherwise, all the changes, everything that they've been put through, they won't stick.
Yeah. 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 Some big things got rolling with the first one.
Oh,
Oh.
yeah. So their whole lives changed entirely. I mean, as completely as possible. And I'm going to do it again.
Nice. Um, this seems like a good time to bring up Patrick's question. Will we see more Kale?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So we get to see more of Kale. We get to see more of his planet. Um,
Nice.
we get to see him beating up all kinds of things, um, and adjusting his expectations for the culture that he finds himself in. Even on his own planet, he had very limited experiences. Being raised in the desert as a soldier and essentially cannon fodder. So he gets to go learn all kinds of stuff now. It's going to be fun.
Oh, I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, I'm going to do my best to drown him several times.
Now, I know you don't have a whole lot more time, so I really appreciate you um, coming and meeting with me. I did want to make sure that we talked about how you approached Penance's conversion, because that is something that I've talked about on this on my channel before,
Mhm.
and um, just think that you had a unique approach to it.
Um, yeah, so while I was writing the story, I mean, I knew that Penance was not going to have the strength to become a new person all by herself. And so her faith was going to play a very big part in um, in her character development from the very beginning. And I had read a lot of Christian. Well, I thought of it as a lot, but I had read some Christian fiction before, where they get all into, oh, the call to follow God was like this, or oh, it was like this, or this, and this happened. And um, I always hated those chapters. I'm like, that's so stupid. That's not. That's
I
so
feel the same
stupid.
way.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. These are very nice, very well meaning people writing these books.
Oh
And I'm
yeah.
sorry. And I'm not going to mention any of their names um, because I don't want to embarrass them. But, like, listen, it's like, it's not, it's not going to be meaningful. I mean, it's something that is at once so ordinary and so extraordinary that it will not be meaningful to anyone but you. So, if you have a conversion experience yourself like Penn did, it's going to look and feel completely different. The only thing that you're going to get that's the same is God, because you are a completely different person and God is talking to you personally. So, if you have not had a conversion experience and you're reading a book and you get bogged down in this description of somebody else's conversion experience, it's going to be completely meaningless and weird. And you're like, well, I'm glad I'm not in that position because, apparently somebody lost their minds for like 2 pages, 16 paragraphs or something. Um, so I didn't want to give the play by play. I wanted to show the important part, which is not like the experience itself that's only meaningful to the person experiencing it. I wanted to show what's meaningful to an observer because there are people coming in that, they may be Christian, they may not be Christian. They may have a lot of weird ideas about Christians. Look,
Sure.
I just want to show the effects on Penn's life. How she thinks about it, how she feels about it, but the play by play is going to be utterly meaningless to anyone other than her.
I think by allowing it to happen sort of off stage, you sort of open up the reader who has had that conversion experience to recall and sort of fill in and connect with Penance with their own uh, memory and experience of that moment.
Yeah. I mean, if you know it, you know it. And if you don't, well, I don't want you getting bogged down in the details and getting distracted from the story. This ultimately the story is the thing.
Right. Yeah. Um, yeah. And Patrick is in the chat, and he felt that the way that you unfolded it, he says,
Mhm.
um, instead of sort of forcing the reader to experience that, it allowed the event to be meaningful because the focus was more on the effects, the story that happened as a result.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good to hear from you, Patrick. Uh,
And
So,
he
yeah.
also said that he posted his review to your new
Oh, thank
Amazon.
you so much. Yeah, the oh my goodness, the Amazon listings are really weird right now because you can find I tried to fix things and now it's possible to find the print versions on Amazon too, but they're not linked to the Kindle one
Oh boy.
and I have some completely other random person's reviews stuck onto my hardback
Oh no.
version.
I hope that
Yeah. I mean, they're nice reviews, but this is not my book. I
yeah.
don't know what book they're talking about, but it's not mine.
Oh, dear.
I'm sorry. It wasn't me.
Oh
I didn't do
no.
it.
it, it's so funny to me. Like for the most part, Amazon works pretty well. But every once in a while, there's just some sort of
Yeah.
bug.
Yeah, there's some weird little hiccup going on. And it's like I get a demonstration of Murphy's Law every day, every time I open my eyes and start looking at what is going on with this book. Um, oh, look at that, another weird thing to try to fix. Yeah, it's been kind of crazy,
Yeah.
but
Um,
it's out, it's in print, it's an ebook, it's going to be an audiobook. It's really close.
nice.
It's in the it's in the process of being mastered
Awesome.
now. So I'll be releasing it through Findaway Voices, which distributes everywhere, not just
Okay.
Audible.
Oh, that's
So yeah,
cool.
you'll be able to find it on Spotify and um actually I only remember Spotify because they just bought Findaway Voices. Um
But
but
there's
yes,
other ones too.
everywhere. And they distribute to Audible. So there.
Okay. That's great. So I know you said you had about half an hour and we've reached that point. Um,
Yeah.
do you want to
Yeah,
wrap up?
I'm gonna start getting loopy. I'm so tired.
I really appreciate you staying up late for me.
Oh, no problem.
Do you want to just say what you hope readers take away from your work, Penance in particular?
Um, well, honestly, it's what I want from I only want one thing from my readers. I want them to read my book and enjoy it and come away from it feeling like they have just had this awesome adventure with people that they enjoyed being around. Um, I in college I heard a lot, um, you know, English major, so lots of literature. Um, a lot of the modern literature classes were all about making the reader uncomfortable. And you know what? I recently threw away one of those books and it felt good. One of the classic literature books. It was well written, but goodness, it was depressing and I felt slimy after I read it. Um, I don't want to write literature. I want to write well. I want to write fantastic stories that, grip you and engage you. I want them to be well written, yes,
Yeah.
but I do not want to challenge you in such a way that you feel slimy after you read it or like you have just spent an eternity with the most horrid people in existence. No, I want the opposite of that. I want you to go have an adventure with the best of friends, with the best friends you could ever ask for, like people that you wouldn't mind getting to know in real life.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Um, so yeah. Is there anything else that you wanna say? Um, want to plug where people can find you?
Yeah, so my website is otherrealmstudio.com, and I do update that occasionally. You can actually find and order uh, hardback and paperback copies now from Other Realm Studio, and I will sign them for you.
Mm.
Um, and also, I have my comic, Soulbound. available on Other Realm Studio, and also issues 1 and 2 are available on Amazon. If you find and follow my author page, you should be able to find everything now working out from there. Don't just try and plug it in and search. It's a disaster. Yeah, and I'm also going to be at Soda City Comic Con in August in
fun.
South Carolina. So if you want to come see me there, it's a good show.
David says I should show the comics. So we've just rearranged.
Go find comics.
There we go. I do have. No, I'm not sure. We might have the third one, or maybe.
No, I have the third one. I'm still coloring it.
That's.
All right, so Soulbound 1, Adrift.
So that's this one. Yeah.
Yes, and that's the first in the series, and then the second is Soulbound 2, Escape, and I am working on Oaths. We'll be doing a Kickstarter for that as soon as I finish getting it colored, and I will figure out where to get it printed. The first 2 books are on newsprint, but the publisher who was offering the newsprint is, he had to shut that part of his business down. He's got to concentrate on his own works. So, I had this whole support system built up like 2 years ago, and it's gone. It's gone.
Such a bummer.
All you can do is just get up again, crawl forward over the mountain.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much. Thank you, everybody who tuned in. My review of Penance is on periapsispress.com, and I will have a written interview, which some of the same things that we talked about tonight, some different things, and that will be coming up later this week. So keep an eye on that.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, and there's some links in the description. Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate you staying up late. All right, have a great night.
All right, you too. Good night, everybody.
Bye.